Okay, in part B, we're finally going to get to do some calculations in this particular question. Assuming that the survey sample size was the same in previous years, it can be claimed that more Australians had vegetable gardens in 2013 than in 1992. So it's saying here, the most important part is construct and interpret one confidence interval in your answer. Now it's also important to note that we're looking at two different surveys. That's really important, two different surveys, one in 1992 and one in 2013. First of all, we need to know what the sample size was. So if we look into the report a little bit further down in the report, you'll see here that it says that the survey of 1,390 Australians was conducted online during that time. So now we can construct a margin of error. So the margin of error, MOE, is equal to 1 over the square root of n, which in this case would be 1 over the square root of 1390. And when we do this on our calculator, we get it coming out at 0.0268, which we could round if we wanted to, or make it into a percentage as either 2.68% or 2.7%. So long as you show you're working, it doesn't matter how many decimal places you've got. From here, we then have to go on to the next step. And the next step is constructing and interpreting one confidence interval in your answer. So now we have to construct a confidence interval, and to do that we need to use a couple of formulas. The first one is that we need to figure out, first of all, what the margin of error is for two independent samples. So just right here, it's not writing for me, there we go, margin of error for two independent samples. Oops. And there's a simple rule for that, is that that is 1.5 times the MOE, which in this case here would be 1.5 times 2.7, which we got from here, and that equals 4.1%. So the next step we have to do is work out the difference between the two samples, and I could just put the table up here from the report, and we can see that in 1992 our percentage of households growing vegetables was 35%, okay, and in 2013 this had risen to 39%. So this has a difference of 4%. So with this 4%, we can create a confidence interval. Now, the confidence interval here, in this case, would be between, or the increase, so the confidence interval for the increase, I'll just write this out, increase from 1992, because that's when we started, so 1992, pen's not working very well, sorry, and 2013 is equal to 4%, which is the difference, plus or minus 4.1, and that's a 4.1, which is from this number here. And so what we do here is we now need to interpret that. So that's your confidence interval that you're trying to create. So now we need to interpret this. So we use this number here, and if it's fully positive, so if we add or subtract 4.1 to 4%, if that range was fully above 0, or if it was fully below 0, then we're pretty confident that there's a real difference between the 2 years. However, if the difference includes 0, we know that there's not much difference between the 2 years at all. So let's create a confidence interval for this then. Whoops, I just moved it to the side accidentally. So if we go 4 minus 4.1%, we get negative 0.1. And if we go 4 plus 4.1%, we get 8.1. And that's our confidence interval. And you'll notice here that because this first number, the lower limit, is below 0, it spans 0. So therefore, we can't make the call as such. So you'd want to write something along the lines of the lower end of this confidence interval falls below 0. Or it's at 0 if it's rounded differently. So just watch out for your rounding. So, and if it includes 0, we can't make the call. So therefore, we cannot be confident of an increase in the proportion of Australian households growing vegetables. And it's important when you're interpreting the confidence interval that you refer it back to the context, and the context in this particular question is those people or proportion of Australian households growing vegetables. If you can correctly choose the fact that you've got two independent samples and work out and go through all this process and get the correct confidence interval, that's worth, just the confidence interval, 4.1%, then that's worth a C. If you can calculate a margin of error for the difference and construct your confidence interval, this value here, that's worth a J. If you can interpret it, relating it back to the context, so interpret in context, then that's worth the I. Now, if you had gone along and done the 2 times MOE and gone and correctly given us a confidence interval based on that correct MOE and interpreted it, you can still get a C for that. So just be aware that even if you're not sure, is it 1.5, is it 2, go along and try one of them anyway and work it all the way through, because you will still get some credit for that, but you need to carry it through to the end. And that's all you need for that question.